Most people think that if aliens ever visited Earth, they'd arrive with perfect technology, flawless ships gliding silently through our skies, impervious to malfunction or damage. But what if that assumption is completely wrong? What if advanced beings from distant worlds face the same mechanical breakdowns and equipment failures that plague every piece of technology humans have ever built? And what if, one day in the Nevada desert, a stranded extraterrestrial pilot did something no science fiction movie had ever imagined, walked up to a human soldier and simply asked for help? This is the story Jason Sands tells. A decorated Air Force Master Sergeant with 22 years of service, Sands spent his career moving from aircraft maintenance into intelligence work. By the mid-1990s, he had been recruited into what he describes as a classified program operating in the shadows near Nellis Air Force Base, adjacent to the infamous Area 51. According to his testimony on Joe Rogan's podcast and in James Fox's documentary, The Program, what happened to him in 1994 would shatter every assumption about first contact. It was October, somewhere in the vast expanse of the Nellis Test Range in Nevada. According to Sands, he was leading a convoy of 4 military vehicles across the desert landscape, a routine assignment in an area where routine had long been redefined by classified projects and black programs. The destination was Black Mountain, part of the sprawling test range where experimental aircraft and weapon systems disappeared into compartmentalized secrecy. But as the convoy moved through the desolate terrain, Sands noticed something that stopped him cold. A figure stood beside the dirt road, at first glance appearing to be a person in military fatigues. In the desert cold, hypothermia was a real concern, and Sands' first instinct was to help what he assumed was a fellow serviceman in distress. He ordered the convoy to halt and stepped out of his vehicle. As he approached, however, the figure's appearance became impossible to rationalize. According to Sands' detailed account, the being's skin had a distinct bluish tint, not the blue-gray of someone suffering from cold, but something fundamentally different. Its gait was unsteady, almost mechanical. Most disturbing of all, as Sands drew closer, he could see that while the entity wore what appeared to be a clean military uniform, its physical features were unmistakably non-human. The being had no ears. Its eyes were oversized, extending toward the temples in a way that no human face could accommodate. And yet, despite these alien features, something about its presence seemed calm, even vulnerable. Then came the moment that would define the rest of Sands' life. The being spoke to him, not with words, but directly into his mind. Sands describes the telepathic communication as unlike anything he had ever experienced. "It was like someone opened a Sears catalog in my head," he told Rogan, struggling to convey the precision and detail of the mental images that flooded his consciousness. The entity wasn't just transmitting thoughts. It was sharing technical schematics, specifications, and detailed information about materials and repair procedures. The alien's message was startling in its simplicity. "Hello. I'm having trouble with my craft. I need some repair material. Do you know where I could find some tritium?" At first, Sands thought the being was asking for titanium, a metal he was familiar with from his aircraft maintenance background. But the entity corrected him. Tritium, a radioactive isotope of hydrogen with a half-life of 12.3 years, used in everything from nuclear weapons to the glow-in-the-dark hands of military watches. The alien needed tritium to repair its damaged spacecraft. According to Sands, the conversation continued telepathically, with the being showing him detailed mental images of the specific component that required repair. The level of technical detail was overwhelming, far beyond anything Sands had encountered in his military training. Yet somehow, through the telepathic link, he understood exactly what the entity needed. When Sands suggested that the being might find help at Dreamland, the classified facility known as Area 51, visible in the distance across the desert mountain range. The response was immediate and emotionally overwhelming. A wave of disgust and revulsion hit Sands through the telepathic connection. The aliens' reaction was unmistakable. It wanted nothing to do with the military programs operating at that facility. According to Sands, the being's emotional response conveyed a clear message about the military personnel there: barbarians and murderers. This wasn't the clinical, emotionless alien of popular culture. This was a being capable of moral judgment, expressing what seemed to be ethical revulsion toward human military activities. The entity's craft, according to Sands's detailed description, was nearby, a vehicle that matched his account of the famous Nellis Air Force Base UFO footage recorded just a week earlier in 1994. The object resembled a large egg with two massive horn-like protrusions extending from top to bottom, which served as landing skids. The cockpit was housed in the front section of this egg-shaped structure, while the rear featured a flat, oval-shaped component about 5 feet long and 3 feet tall. This rear section appeared to be damaged, presumably the part requiring tritium for repairs. The entire craft measured between 15 and 20 feet in length, with an estimated height of 10 feet. Despite its damage, the vessel remained intact and functional enough to have brought the being to this remote location. What struck Sands most powerfully, however, was not the technology, but the consciousness he encountered. Through the telepathic link, he felt the being's emotions, its frustrations, even what seemed to be a sense of loneliness. The alien presence, he later described, connected him to something vast, a broader consciousness that suggested intelligence far beyond individual minds. The encounter lasted approximately 5 minutes, but its impact would follow Sands for decades. After the telepathic exchange ended, the being returned to its craft and departed, leaving Sands and his convoy to continue their mission. But something had fundamentally changed. Sands describes feeling permanently altered by the experience, connected to a reality larger than human perception normally allows. The practical implications of the alien's tritium request raise profound questions. Tritium is a controlled substance, heavily regulated due to its use in nuclear weapons and other sensitive applications. The fact that an extraterrestrial being would specifically request this material suggests a level of knowledge about human technology and resources that goes far beyond casual observation. Moreover, the being's apparent familiarity with military operations, evidenced by its disgust toward Area 51 programs, implies previous contact or surveillance of human activities. This wasn't first contact. This was a being already familiar with human civilization, seeking specific help from someone it somehow identified as potentially sympathetic. Sands's testimony gained significant attention when he appeared on Joe Rogan's podcast in January 2025, alongside fellow Air Force veteran Lenville Logan. The 3-hour conversation delved deep into the technical aspects of the tritium request, the emotional complexity of the telepathic communication, and the broader implications of what Sands claims to have witnessed. During the podcast, Rogan and Sands explored the properties of tritium, discussing its radioactive nature and its various applications in both civilian and military technology. The specificity of the alien's request struck both men as significant. This wasn't a generic plea for help, but a precise technical requirement that suggested deep knowledge of human materials science. The official response to Sands's claims has been predictably dismissive. The Pentagon's All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, AARO, investigated his testimony and concluded in their historical record report that what Sands encountered was a special access program, a classified human operation that he misunderstood as alien contact. According to ARO's findings, Sands likely witnessed legitimate but highly classified military testing and misinterpreted the events through the lens of UFO beliefs. They suggest that his encounter involved human personnel and technology, not extraterrestrial contact. Sands categorically rejects this explanation. To him, the being he encountered was unmistakably non-human, and the telepathic communication was unlike anything human technology could produce. He maintains that Aro's conventional explanation fails to account for the specific details of his experience, particularly the emotional and consciousness-altering aspects of the encounter. The controversy surrounding Sands' testimony has divided both believers and skeptics. Some view him as one of the most credible military witnesses to come forward, citing his decorated service record and the technical specificity of his claims. Others point to inconsistencies in his broader allegations and question whether memory and belief might have transformed a conventional military encounter into something extraordinary. What cannot be disputed is the impact of his story. Sands' account of an alien requesting tritium has introduced a radically different perspective on potential extraterrestrial contact, one where advanced beings face mundane technical problems and seek help from the very humans they're supposedly studying. This narrative challenges fundamental assumptions about alien visitation. If true, it suggests that interstellar travel doesn't guarantee perfect technology, that advanced civilizations face equipment failures just like humans do, and that the relationship between species might be more collaborative than confrontational. The tritium request also raises strategic questions. If extraterrestrial beings require human materials for repairs, it implies a level of dependency that contradicts typical invasion or conquest scenarios. Instead, it suggests relationships based on mutual need, aliens who might require human resources while potentially offering advanced knowledge in return. For Sands, speaking publicly about his experience has come at a personal cost. He has described struggling to find employment after going public, with his security clearance becoming more of a liability than an asset. Yet he continues to advocate for disclosure, believing that humanity deserves to know about potential non-human intelligence operating in our world. Whether Sands encountered genuine extraterrestrial contact, witnessed misunderstood classified technology, or experienced something else entirely, his story has pushed the conversation about UFOs into new territory. The image of an alien pilot walking up to a human soldier and asking for spare parts is both mundane and revolutionary, a scenario that makes contact seem less like science fiction and more like an awkward first meeting between civilizations. In the vast Nevada desert, where classified projects have redefined the boundaries of the possible for decades, Jason Sands claims he learned that the universe might be far more collaborative than we ever imagined. And until more evidence emerges, we're left with one veteran's testimony about the day aliens proved they're just as susceptible to mechanical failures as the rest of us. The truth remains somewhere in the shadows of Black Mountain, where tritium might just be the key to understanding our place in a crowded cosmos. Disclaimer: this video is based on public reports, eyewitness testimonies, and speculative analysis. Some details remain unverified. All interpretations are intended for informational and entertainment purposes only.